Welcome back to the Raising Men podcast. My name is David Whalen. This is episode 11, and I am here today with Bobby Scales. Bobby, welcome.
David, glad to be here. Glad to be with you.
Yeah. I have to continue to thank Megan Popovic, who is one of our previous guests. I've also had a podcast with her brother recently, and she's, been gracious enough to connect us, and which is amazing. And, after reading your story and knowing who you are and how you got to where you are, I think it's just perfect for this podcast. So again, thank you to Megan Popovic, and thank you to yourself for being on today.
No, I appreciate that. Just Meg's tremendous. What a tremendous human and
Yes.
connector of people. And the great thing about her is just the fact that she truly wants the best for everybody. She in her entire sphere of influence, and that's awesome to be around people like that.
I agree. Her family is they're incredible people. So I want to make sure I give them a shout out and say thank you. Knowing, at least sort of understanding, and I think it's great to have you on. The concept of the podcast is really to help lend guidance and support for men,
Right.
and really families, anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to connect to sport per se, but really sharing stories and sharing people and having perspective on people that have gone through things. And what I love, obviously yourself having played, Major League Baseball and having made it to the epitome of really where a lot of young athletes want to make it, professional sports, and knowing the challenges of how you got there and the hard work and the time it took for you to get there. Can you share a bit of that adversity and challenge and sort of how you got to that point in your life?
Yeah, how long we got? No,
Yeah.
I say that, but I have had a very fortunate life. To be honest with you, blessed and fortunate. I haven't had tragedies and crazy things happen to me. God forbid anything happens. But I'll say this. As far as the adversity I faced within the game, I was very fortunate in that one of the first instances of that happened to me when I was really, really early in my career. I mean, I was ninth grader. I was a good high school. I was a good player till I was like 12, 13 years old. I played every sport. I was usually the best player on my team. That kind of stuff. And I don't say that arrogantly. These are some of the things that, they were. And then, I played on some elite travel teams, and it was very different. I'm 45 years old. It was very different. The travel scene was very different back then. I mean, you really had to be pretty good to get on these teams. And that was the first time I ever ran into somebody who was probably better than me. It was probably 11, 12 years old. And then, but I was still a good player. It wasn't like I was, not very good at all. So you get to high school, played high school football, played high school basketball, started on both of those teams on the freshman teams here in the States. And then got to, my high school did not have freshman baseball. We only had junior varsity baseball. I got to baseball that year, and I got cut from the team. Now, there's a lot of circumstances surrounding it, whatever. You can say what you want to say about it, but the bottom line is I wasn't playing for my high school that year. And so I never forget. I learned so many lessons from this one interaction. So, again, 45 years old, you got to remember, it wasn't get a text message. It wasn't check the website back then. It was, you got to go downstairs to the coach's offices, and outside on the corkboard was the team on the yellow legal pad that he scribbled down. So you get to the bottom of that list, and I had gotten cut from the junior varsity team. And so, just the way that our offices were set up, I had to walk past the coach's office to get to the locker room to get my stuff, to call my parents and come get me to go home. So I remember, you do all that, and I talked to the coach. He's like, "Hey, it's tough. We just chose other guys." I was like, "Okay, whatever. You're mad, whatever. But it's, what are you gonna do? Move some furniture around? No, it's ridiculous, right?" So I remember going home, and my dad, who had a home office. I mean, he had an office too. He was in insurance for 35 years, and he had an office at his office, but also had an office at the house. And I remember walking in the house. He asked me how it went. Again, you gotta remember, this is pre-cell phone. I had to wait to get home to tell my dad I didn't make the team. So he was, he was grinding away at some work, finishing up some stuff from that day. And I remember he goes, well, how did it go? Didn't look up. How did it go, son? And I said, well, I didn't make the team. And he kind of paused. He put his pen down. Then he looked up at me. He said, so what are you going to do? He goes, you're going to do something this spring. You want to run track for the school, or you want to find a way to play some baseball, that's not affiliated with the school, because you're going to do something. Mm-hmm. And I said, I guess I'll play baseball. And he said, okay, so we got work to do. And that was it. And that was all it was. Right. And so played on the recreation team for that year and what have you. Fast forward to the next year, similar situation. I'm coming out from basketball. So this, all of the seasons run together. So you're working on a very limited time schedule. So I got like 5 days to try out. The weather's not great. In Georgia, this is not South Florida or South Texas or Southern California. We've got weather issues here, especially in the spring. It's very wet. It's not cold. It's not Canada cold, but it's not comfortable either, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, we had a couple proper days to try out, on the field, do it in a good fashion. And lo and behold, I got cut again. And so same process. You go downstairs and you look on the board. Now I'll put a pin in this, but this is where I learned humility in understanding another man's feelings. And I say men, but we were boys at the time, right? And I'm looking at the board. My name's not on it for a second straight year. And there's guys literally right next to me, fist pumping, carrying on. That's relevant later. So walk past the coach's office again. He goes, listen, so the varsity coach stops me, not the junior varsity coach, the varsity. He goes, what do you mean you didn't make the team? So clearly there was no communication between the junior varsity coach and the varsity coach. But I didn't make, he goes, well, just listen, I'll talk to coach. You're on the team. Just, we'll see you tomorrow. So I made the team. But that year was a lesson in humility as well, because I think there was backlash between the JV coach and the varsity coach. And basically the JV coach said, I'll keep him, but I'm not going to play him. And I got like 9 at-bats in like the 15, 16 games we played on the junior varsity. So I basically didn't play. So, there's more to it. I'm not going to keep going, but I got kicked in the teeth twice there. Right. And so again, I remember going home after that final game. You turn your uniform in. I went home. My dad said, all right, son, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He goes, well, I think you should keep playing because I think you're a pretty good ball player. You just didn't get an opportunity. And I said, okay, so we got work to do. So we played that summer and we kept grinding at it and what have you. And fast forward to the next year, again, varsity football, started on varsity basketball. But I got to make this baseball team because clearly the first 2 years, clearly the first 2 years of my baseball experience wasn't what it should have been or could have been, right? So long story short, I make the team, and I was like the last guy off the bench that year. It was like the 7th or 8th game of the season, and I hadn't played. Wow. So coach, we're getting beat up pretty good in a game, and next thing you know, coach comes down to the bench. He says, "Hey man, I got to get you in that bat." I said, "Okay." He says, "You want one right now?" I said, "Absolutely." So I go up there. I wasn't really ready, but somehow I found a way to hit a homer over the center field fence in my first varsity swing, and nice. The rest is kind of history. I stayed in the lineup the rest of the year. I made the all region team, and senior year I think I was all region again, and the rest was history. So it was everything I got, especially on the diamond, or all in really in life, truly. But I've had to fight and scratch and claw for. There's been no free rides. And the times that I have had a little bit of an advantage was, I think, a result of some of the work that I had put in previously. So when I say adversity, I was fortunate. I had 2 parents that were tremendous. They worked. They made good money. They didn't, we weren't rich, but I certainly didn't want for anything. And I had tremendous guidance. I had a dad that was old school. He loved me, and I knew it, but he wasn't gonna be all hugs and kisses and all that kind of stuff all the time. He showed me by his actions and the way he worked. Like I said, my father had his own insurance business. And so he would set up his weeks based on my playing schedule. So obviously football in the United States in high school, you play on Friday night. So he would crush it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. half day Thursday, and then Friday after Thursday afternoon and Friday was, very light. So he could make sure he got to the football games. And basketball was a little bit different. You got different
Mhm.
games during the week, and then baseball was the same. So, but he worked his tail off to provide for us, and as my mom did too. We were a 2 income household, and she was always around and always supportive as well. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I had these massive chunks of adversity that I had to overcome, but there were little things, there were small things throughout my development that definitely played into who I am now.
No, that's I think it's I obviously never played at a professional level in any of the sports that I thought I was good at. um, but I think in my life, I have been blessed in a way to face some challenges that others haven't. And, you know, as much as it maybe has not necessarily turned into, you know, gold for myself, I think it's allowed me to be a better father. I think it's given me, um, tools that I can speak to my children, and I'm not afraid to admit my own challenges to them, and I'm able to be as loving as possible and supportive through their own challenges. I think, and again, even having these podcasts has been so helpful in speaking with people like yourself that have had incredible experiences and have accomplished great things. And I love, from my understanding, at least of your story, is that you continued to face adversity, as we would call it, through sport until eventually making the major leagues. And I think, again, from my understanding of your story, that continual effort and work and push and drive to get to your ultimate goal, I think that's a story that's important for people to understand.
No, and it's true. I mean, it's funny. So you finally, get to I say the mountaintop. I kind of accomplished some goals in high school, and like I said, I was a good high school player
Yeah.
in a region with great high school players. I mean, there's 4 or 5 guys that were in our region alone, that ended
Mhm.
up playing in the big leagues for multiple years and World Series rings and a boatload of money and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I was fortunate enough to get into the University of Michigan on my own merit, and that's important to me to say that.
Mhm.
It wasn't because I could hit a baseball; it's because I was a good enough student, and that was
Mhm.
driven by both my parents, but my mom especially.
Mhm.
Again, not that my father didn't care about the academics, but my mom, she went to the school of hard knocks. Everything she got, my parents grew up in a time where you could establish yourself professionally without having to go to school, go to
Mhm.
college, I should say. But that's what my mom did. So she was, one of her dreams for me, but really and truly, she was for her too. She wanted to see me graduate from college, and Michigan was always a focus for me. I was born in Detroit. I grew up in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Have a lot of family still there to this day, but it was always Michigan. It was never any other school. I didn't want to go any other. I got accepted to other universities, but I wanted to go to Michigan. And I remember telling my dad when I was 8 that I was going to play football for the University of Michigan. Well, look, when I graduated high school, I'm 5'9", 165.
Mhm.
I stand, I sit, here before you today, about 6 foot, about 188 pounds. So even now would have been a challenge with the way some of these guys look. But
Yeah.
I wanted to go to Michigan, and I wanted to have those 8 letters across my chest. That's what I
Mhm.
wanted to do. So I had some smaller school offers here in Georgia, and I remember asking my high school baseball coach, Charlie Beverly, and this is another name for later.
Mhm.
My senior year, we got a new coach in baseball, and Coach Beverly had a tremendous amount of success on the south side of the city at a smaller high school. He was known throughout high school baseball coaching circles, both in Virginia and here,
Mhm.
as being a top-notch coach. And so we were able to get him for my senior year, and he immediately turned our program around. But I tell you what, Charlie Beverly was no nonsense. He wasn't here for the nonsense. He wasn't here for the bull, and he would tell you exactly where he stood. Now, I was a good player. I was one of the better, if not the best player on my team, one of the best players in the region. But nonetheless, I remember asking him after my senior year in high school. I said, Coach Beverly, well, during my senior year of high school, I said, Coach, do you think I can play at Michigan? He looked me dead in the eye and said, No, I don't think you're a Division I baseball player. If I were you, I'd go to a junior college and I would, get my skills together further, improve my skills, and then look for an opportunity to play after 2 years in junior college.
Wow.
Now, I'm no nonsense. Give me what you got. That's how I'm wired. That's how my dad raised me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe to a certain extent, that's how you have to be growing up, being a man, especially in this environment, in this time.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not a popular view, but don't sugarcoat it. Give it to me give it to me straight, no chaser. Because I really don't have time or interest in any other nonsense, right? So, um, I wasn't offended. I took it as a challenge, that I had to get a lot better that summer, and I didn't really have a great frame of reference of what Division One baseball was all about. But I do know that I was getting a very unique opportunity at Michigan in that, I had a coach that uh, basically took me. I won't say sight unseen, but again, you got to understand the landscape of 1995. This is manila envelopes with VHS tapes and press clippings of everything you've done in every other sport, and maybe a note or two from a scout that thinks you're pretty good. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
was. You send it up there, and I went up to Michigan, and a gentleman who changed my life, named Ace Adams. He was the recruiting coordinator at Michigan at the time, and short little dude, left-handed pitcher when in his day, pitched at Michigan. He's from Boston, huge, heavy Boston accent, very as stereotypical as you want to go.
Yeah.
And we went up there, and he basically asked me, he goes, "What do you want out of the University of Michigan?" And I told him I was going to get an education. Um, and I would like the opportunity to make this team. If I don't make this team and I get cut after the fall, then I'm going to go walk right back up the hill in State Street, and I'm going to be a student. I'm going to graduate here in 8 semesters. He said, "That's one of the best answers I've ever heard. You're going to get an opportunity to do it here, kid." And I said, "Okay." And that was that. And so, I went back when I went back to my high school. This was a visit that I had, unofficial visit. They weren't going to pay for me to have an official visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my coach that. He goes, "I don't think you're going to play there." And so now it's a challenge. Now it's on. So now I gotta, now I gotta dig in and prove him wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I went up there, and I got an opportunity in fall, and I had a great fall tryout, and I made the team. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and this is, I'm going to land this plane here in a second, but the day that they put the list up, right? So I walked down to the facility. I walked down to the baseball stadium. I don't get nervous like this. I was nervous because I wanted this so bad.
Yeah.
Because I was 8 years old. All I wanted to do was make a team, make the
Mm-hmm.
Michigan team, and play and have Michigan across my chest. That's how much it meant for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking in, and I walked. There's a back door. It's completely different now, but there's a back door you could walk in and go right to the clubhouse, or you could walk in the front door and walk through the lounges and the offices and what have you. So I was terrified for my name not to be on that list. So I went back and I went through the back door, and I sat in front of my locker until time for it to go up. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. You got to face it, man up, and deal with it. It's going to go one way or it's going to go the other. So I went out there, and I remember looking at the list, and it was pitchers, catchers, outfielders, and infielders. And I'm a middle infielder, right? And so you go down the list, pitchers, obviously, whatever. You keep working, and at the very bottom of the infielders list was Bobby Scales. I had made the team. So I remember going back to the clubhouse, sitting down, and I was like, I was a mess. I was sweating. I was wrecked. It was just the level of relief on my face was, it was a joke, right?
Yeah.
And our captain, a guy named Kirk Bierman, who I talked to this day, I said, he goes, Scalesy, what's your problem? He says, "You made the team." I said, "Right. Yeah, I'm the last guy on the list." He goes, "Did you notice what the list, like how it was sorted?" I go, "Yeah, pitchers, catchers, outfielders, infielders." He goes, "No, idiot." He goes, "It's alphabetical." So
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah." So he got me to laugh there, and then it was one of those things too. And one of the things that there was a couple guys. It just so happened that when I went up to the list and looked at it, there were two other guys there. It was me and two other guys. And both of those guys had gotten cut, and they had made the team. They were like myself. They were invited walk-ons, but they were on the team the year before, and they had gotten cut from this team. And all I wanted to do was scream and yell and holler and pump my fist and drop to my knees and thank God and everybody else. But I in that moment, I went back to being a freshman and sophomore in high school and seeing those other guys pump their fists and hand slap and all that. And at that moment, I just felt like I needed to have a little bit more humility, and just be humble and thankful for the opportunity I had, and then that I shown them enough to keep me, because those guys had gotten cut and their dream had ended, right, of being a Michigan baseball player had ended. And so that was a valuable lesson for me, and just being able to you can be happy for yourself, but you need to stay humble and understand that somebody else is also on the other end of what you're feeling. And so I always, when I tell that story, I always tell both sides of that, because I'd gotten both sides of that, and that was a huge learning moment for me.
Yeah. Again, it's so interesting how life lessons earlier on in life impact where we are today. So I guess taking it the next step, because I know making the show was such a big moment for you.
Yeah.
How did you get to that next level? How did you get there? Like, what
Yeah.
was it that really like landed you that spot?
Well, it was funny because, like I said, it was, my entire existence, or my entire athletic existence was not without issue.
Mhm.
I was a walk on. So then, the next piece is, okay, we got to make the travel squad, and then we got to play, and then we got to find a starting spot. And then, all those things seemed to happen by the end of my freshman year. I was starting at designated hitter. And then my sophomore year, I was the primary designated hitter. And then my junior year, found my way out to second base, and did a good job there. My senior year, I'm a walk on. 3 years earlier, I'm a walk on, no scholarship player. And then by the beginning of my senior year, my teammates had voted me co-captain, and I had a scholarship.
Wow.
You talk about the honor of the guys that you had been with for some 3 years to that point, saying, hey, listen, we want you to represent us. We want you to lead us into whatever, games or whatever, endeavors we have as a team this year. That was a tremendous honor, and one that I will never forget. And so I really, honest to God, was not thinking about getting drafted. At no point was I thinking about getting drafted. In the 3 years I was there, I'd had some really nice years. And then my senior year, I had a really good year. And only towards it, when I started getting, again, you're getting the, what they used to do back in the day is scouts would send you cards. They'd send you like these postcards, and you fill them out, you send them back. And I had talked to 20, I think it was 24 of the teams at that point. I figured I was going to get drafted. I didn't know where, what round, what have you, but I figured I was going to get drafted. And then that's when it became real for me. And then sure enough, the day I got drafted, a 14th round selection by the San Diego Padres in a 99 draft. And I didn't get a big signing bonus. I got $1,000. I got a plane ticket to Arizona for draft camp. And then, we went down there for a week, and then we were off to Idaho Falls, Idaho, to start my career in short season baseball in the Pioneer League. So, yeah, I mean, and then from there, it was a journey. 2000 was Class A ball in Fort Wayne. 2001 was Class A ball in Lake Elsinore, California. 2002 and 3 was Double A baseball in Mobile, Alabama. 2004, 5 was AAA in Portland, Oregon. 6 was AAA in Scranton, Pennsylvania. 7 was AAA in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. 8 was AAA in Des Moines, Iowa. 9 was AAA.
Wow.
The beginning of the season was AAA in Des Moines, Iowa, and I was having a great year. And I had a great spring training. I had a really good spring training. And what happens is you go to Major League camp, and whether you're a non-roster guy or you're on the 40-man roster, there comes a point where they start paring the team down. And so I had made the second to last cuts in Chicago that year. And I remember I walked in the office, and Jim Hendry was there, and Lou Piniella was there. And I said, I was disappointed to go out, but I knew I wasn't going to make the team, and that's okay. Because the objective there is simply to make a good enough impression to where they know, listen, if we need a guy, you're going to be our guy to come up and help us out. And Jim Hendry sat down, looked at me dead in the eye. He said, son, you had a good camp. Just go down to Iowa, do your thing. And if we need a guy, you've proven to us that you can come up and fill that spot. And that was big to hear, because that was a good team too. That was a team that was in the mix for winning that division, leaving spring training. And then Lou, said the same thing. And Lou was great because he's no nonsense. He doesn't care what you think. He was going to give you what you got. If he did a great job, it was going to, might be a little wink and a nod, but if you didn't do your job, he's going to let you know. He won't let you know. And I think I just gravitated to old school cats like that. Don't coddle me. I don't need it. Don't tell me how awesome I am. I don't need it. Give me what you got. If it's good, great. If it's not good, we're going to do better and move on. one of my favorite sayings is eat the meat, spit out the bones. You know, listen to what they're saying. The package and the delivery isn't always necessarily what you need. But that was great to hear. So I did that. You know, a lot of guys like, man, I should have made this team. I'm pissed. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So are you going to give up the first 6 weeks of your season being pissed about not being in the big leagues, or are you going to go down there and perform? Because on the fourth week, someone's going to pull a hammy. And then you're hitting $125. Next thing you know, they pass you up and go for somebody else because you weren't performing because you were pissed off. This serves no purpose, right? Yeah. So my thing was, all right, I'm going to, after you get sent out, you get a day to report down to the minor league camp, and you know, you just get over it, and you keep and you persevere on. And sure enough, I got called up. So this is an interesting story. I get called up the first time, and I say the first time because what they used to do, a lot of times if a player is kind of injured, and I say kind of injured, like they're not sure if they got to put them on the disabled, or they call it the injured list, but back then it was the disabled list or not. Yeah. They would bring a guy in. They'd bring a guy in to make sure that should we have to put this player on the disabled list, we don't lose extra time having to get him in the city. So I got to Chicago, and I'm still on the roster of the AAA team. But Aramis Ramirez had tweaked his calf muscle in Arizona. They had a day off. They flew home. When I get to Wrigley Field, he's in the training room getting treatment, and they're going to take him out, and they're going to, see where he is in his healing process. So this was the most excruciating thing ever, because for the first time in my life, I'm in a major league clubhouse. Yeah. And I dropped, and the old Wrigley was very narrow, just a very rudimentary clubhouse compared to, the big leagues even then. And now it was ridiculous. But I looked over on the right side of the clubhouse, and there's my jersey hanging in my locker, 24 scales hanging up. Wow. I'm not a big leaguer yet. I'm there. My stuff's ready for me, but I have not signed the paperwork to become a major leaguer yet. So, I'm seeing guys that you saw in spring training and guys that you had played with in the minor leagues, and everybody's there and they're going about their business. I go upstairs to talk to Skip, and I end up talking to Alan Trammell, who was the bench coach, and what have you. And so then I went and I found the team trainer, and I was like, listen, Oni, Mark O'Neill was his name. I said, he goes, yeah, just sit tight. We're trying to figure out what's going on with Rami. So they go out, they run him. Jim Hendry comes back by by the locker I'm sitting in front of, and he walks that way. Lou Piniella walks that way with Jim, and then Jim, Mark O'Neill, and Lou walk back up to Lou's. It was back and forth. This is right in front of me. Meanwhile, this is like 4:15, stretches in 10 minutes, and I'm fully clothed in my street clothes. Don't know if I'm active or not. And so finally, about 4:30, the whole team's outside, and Jim takes me into the office and says, listen, he goes, if we put Rami on the disabled list now, we lose him for another 12 days. He's going to be all right in 3 or 4, so we'll play short for the next couple of days. But he goes, I hate it because you worked your ass off to get here, and you deserve being here, but I got to send you back to Iowa. And so I was like, hey man, you guys told me what was going on beforehand. There was no games you guys played. I'm good. So he says, hey, listen, spend the night in the city, go get a steak, and we'll send you back to Iowa tomorrow. I said, well, they got an off day today. They got a game tomorrow. Can you get me out tonight and I can get back there? He goes, you want to go back tonight? I said, absolutely. I want to play tomorrow. He says, okay. So sure enough, I went back down there and we played the next 4 games. This was like on a Tuesday. So then it was like, or a Wednesday. So then Sunday comes around. We're playing a day game in Memphis. We're in Memphis, Tennessee, playing a day game. And it starts raining sideways. It's getting ready to tornado. So game's off. We won't go into the clubhouse, but on the big screen, or on the television in the clubhouse, is the Cub game. And the Cubs are playing the Marlins. And Carlos Zambrano, who was a pitcher, decides he wants to lay a bunt down, and he lays a bunt down, and he runs down the first base line, and he pulls a hamstring. And so he's a pitcher. I'm a position player. I feel like they're gonna fill the spot with a pitcher. So we end up going back to Des Moines, and we get off the plane, and Skip says, my Skip Bobby Dickerson says, hey, listen, Scalesy, they're gonna send you to Chicago to take Zambrano's spot, and it's real this time. They're going to activate you and everything. I said, all right, okay, Skip, we'll see. So I still didn't let myself I didn't let myself go there mentally. So sure enough, next day I show up Chicago, go to Wrigley. They take my stuff. It's the same. It's funny. It's the same reception as the last time. Hey, Scalesy, good to see you. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. And finally, a woman named Haley DeWitt comes down out of the office with the paperwork. I signed the paperwork, and I'm a big leaguer. So, I got pump faked the first time that I got called up, and even that story for me wasn't the normal call up story, but that's okay. I got there, and we the rest was kind of history.
So in transitioning then in the podcast, and I appreciate you sharing all of that story. I know you and I talked a lot about, support for men in general and support for young athletes and sort of how the world and the landscape and all these things. We had some great conversation, you and I, on the phone. What advice do you give to young athletes or men or fathers, anyone in general in life that you've learned through your journey and your challenges?
Wow, there's a lot. So the first one, it's hard. Life can be hard. Your challenges in life are going to surface when you least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is not mine, and I wish it was because it's really good. I said everybody walking the face has a backpack on, right? And that backpack is full of lived experiences that you have had. And each one of those lived experiences provides a tool by which you can apply those lessons to whatever situation you're going in. Now, I do believe I'm a man of faith. I believe that these things are not accidents.
Mm-hmm.
The good Lord puts these things in our pathway to deal with them because He's going to give you something else down the line that you have to deal with, right? And so, I think that don't walk around your life with your eyes closed, or sad that you run into adversity. These adversities, in the moment, they stink. They suck. They're hard. They're hard to deal with at times. They are there to teach you something, and it is extremely important for you to pay attention to these things, right? And so, as a father, I've got a 9-year-old, and he's a little guy. You guys can't hear it, but you see it. But there's a picture on my wall, and he's like
We
3.
can see it.
Okay.
We can see it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great photo.
He's like 2 in that picture. And it was just a kind of an off the cuff picture that turned into a great one. But it's important to let your kids have some struggle, whatever that struggle looks like, an appropriate struggle for their age. I mean, if they're getting, dominated by something, or it's really, really hard or something, you don't want something to kill their spirit, right? But it is really important for us to allow them to struggle some and allow them to fail, because the biggest thing for me as a dad is I want to be there. There's going to be times where I'm going to watch him fail, and I have to be okay with that. And I have to be willing to help him through that and teach him and help him craft that tool and put it in his backpack so that then he can use it down the line when he is, like I said, my son's 9. So when he is 13, when he is 14, when he is 19, when he is 25, and continue to be there every step of the way to help him navigate situations that will come up in his life, because they're coming, even if they don't come early, and even if they aren't as extreme as someone passing early or what have you. You're going to have issues that will shape how you conduct yourself and how you go about your business along the way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I know, as I said, I feel like in my own personal challenges, in life, I feel like there hasn't been, I feel like it's hard for men to reach out or to find resources. I find, there are, I would say I'm non-practicing in terms of religion, but
Right.
somehow, Christianity and all of that has found ways to be a part of my life. Not that I had a professional career out of it, but I trained at a boxing gym
Mm-hmm.
in my 30s and competed, and you know, faith has been a big part of my life. And even when I've sort of tried to step away, it's come into my life. But I also haven't, outside of that, outside of like finding, love for yourself as a
Mm-hmm.
person, as a father, and accepting yourself and the challenges that you've been through and maybe mistakes and
Mm-hmm.
errors in your life. I think accepting yourself as a man is a big thing. Um, but in the last, say, 5 years that I've faced some really challenging points in my life professionally. I lost my sister to suicide. I
Mm-hmm.
lost probably my greatest childhood mentor and my grandfather not long ago. My best friend passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Just constant things that have happened. Lost a job through COVID and so many things. I've looked around and I've struggled to find a real quality, and I say authentic source of support for men, because I find that the stuff that's on social media and available on the internet is designed in some marketing way to sell something. And my purpose in this podcast is really just to be a support tool, and that I care and I want to be able to take my life and give back in some way. And so again, I appreciate this time. And I guess what I'm asking is, again, the tools that you've gotten
Yeah.
through your life and what you're giving, to your child, and
Mm-hmm.
going through all that. I'm appreciative um, of all of that. So thank you.
No, thank you. And first of all, just being that vulnerable and being that open, I think
Mhm.
is a help in and of itself. It's
Mhm.
hard for us. We're not wired for this,
Mhm.
right? We're just not. I'll say this. I think to an extent we're not wired for it, but also I think men of a certain age have not been socialized into believing that we need help. We got it. We got broad shoulders. We can handle it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's a fine line. Some of this stuff you can, but then you have to understand that line. And I don't think it's a fine line. I think it's a line where you
Mhm.
can. And for me, and I'm not denouncing counseling at all. I think counseling is great. I think that if you get to a certain point, you absolutely need counseling. And some people would argue, and maybe they're right too, that you need counseling. It's like having a tune-up for your car. You consistently take your car in for maintenance, right? So why don't you take yourself in for maintenance? And that's a point that I'm not going to argue.
Mhm.
I know that for me, I don't have brothers and sisters. Okay. So my very best friends, my brothers, have been dudes I've really connected with, whether it be from high school, or there's one from high school he's like my brother. And then I have my roommates from college, and then a couple guys from my professional baseball experience that I really consider there. And there's like 4 or 5 of those guys from there that are the Wolfpack, man. It does not matter what time or day or night. I pick the phone up and call, or they call me, and it's that group. Um, they got me. They got me. I can tell them anything. They're not going to judge me.
Mhm.
I can tell them anything. They're still going to love me, brother. I love you. We say that. Wouldn't have
Mhm.
said it, and I'll say this: wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. Wouldn't have said it 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Man, that's kind of that's I don't I don't say that to another dude. Well, brother, I love you.
Mhm.
Growth, man. You've been through it. All of us have been through stuff that steals your resolve, stuff that can sour you if you
Mhm.
don't reach out and talk to somebody.
Mhm.
There's been times when them same guys have, hey man, that's a ridiculous thought. That's dumb. You need to get off of that, and we'll
Mhm.
challenge you. I call it the board of directors.
Yeah.
I call it the board of directors, right? And you need someone on your board of directors that loves you enough to challenge you, that loves you enough to throw an arm around you, that loves you enough to drive over to your house and cry with you, that loves you enough that if they got $5 left and you need 250 of it, you got it.
That's powerful, man. That's really good.
And I just feel like once you find that wolf pack, once you find that board of directors, I'm not going to sit here and say you don't need professional help or counseling. That would be foolish, and I don't believe that. But I think that that can help you right there. When you know someone's got you to that point, or a group of men, and I say men because this is a podcast about men. I said that a group of men have got you to that point. You can get through it. You can get through it.
No,
Whatever that it is.
that is powerful advice, and I hope that for the people that are listening and they're going through things, understanding, having this talk with Bobby Scales today, a gentleman that's made it through numerous challenges, at least in the sports side. Obviously, having good support with your family, and never gave up, never quit, kept being told they weren't good enough, and battled and made it. Reach their dreams, and I think that's a powerful lesson for all of us, and it's something, obviously, those life lessons that to teach to our young men, and to help build them up and to help build their confidence and ability to communicate their emotions and their feelings, and their needs. So I think that's huge. In saying all that, what are you doing today? Like, where is everything transitioned for you today?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So, I'll give you a brief, like I said, played in the big leagues 9 and 10, up and down between AAA and the major leagues, played in Japan, in the MPB, their major leagues, for 11 and 12. I got out. I did I was hired by the Los Angeles Angels as their director of player development. And once I did that, and that essentially, basically, for those who aren't baseball inclined, you are overseeing the entire minor league system for a particular team. So that's a big job. And I was not ready for it when I got it. I could fool myself into saying, yeah, I had some things to work on. No, I wasn't ready. And so it was a trial by fire, and it was what it was. And then, it was one of those situations where I felt like in my third year doing that in 15, I felt like I did great work. We made some moves in the minor leagues. We had some guys get to the big leagues and move some guys through our system. But unfortunately, we didn't win enough games in the big leagues, and that's how it goes. So everybody had to go away. So stayed with the organization in a different capacity, special assistant to the general manager under the new GM, Billy Epler, who was great to me. Gave me a promotion, removed me out of that seat, but was great to me. I've got no issues with Billy whatsoever. Got out for a year. This was a watershed moment in my life. Baseball had been great to me, but baseball had been very tough on me, and I wanted to be out. And this again, I'm an open book. I don't care. I felt my marriage slipping away, and it was going the wrong way. So I said, you know what? I've got to be home more. I need to get out of this game. I need to try something else. Now, I alluded to this earlier. My father had been in insurance for 35 years. So I decided I'm going to get insurance. Well, it wasn't for me. And it wasn't for me. And that was okay. And it was actually, the funny part was, it was actually my ex-brother-in-law. I was like, dude, you're good at this. Go back, get into baseball, and go be who you are. So I did that, hooked on with the Pittsburgh Pirates. 18, 19, and 20 and 21. And at the end of 21, at the end of 20, that was a COVID year, a new regime came in. And again, I got another year with the organization in a different capacity than I was in before. And as it happens, look, these things happen. You don't have to like it, but it is what it is. When you're working in professional athletics, that you're probably going to get fired, how it goes. And the group that I came in with had gotten fired. And so let me back up too. Got out of baseball to work on my marriage, was miserable out of baseball, at least away from the game formally. And then my marriage did disintegrate in 19, and divorce went final in 20. And that was hard, man. There was a lot in that, in that. And you look back at it, and men typically measure things in money and time, right? And I had lost a lot of money. And I had given 26 to 42 in terms of time to my ex-wife, and that's prime real estate in a man's life, right? People say that the prime earning potential and the prime professional potential of a guy in his life is 45 to 55. Well, what you do from your mid 20s to your early 40s is kind of dictating how 45 to 55 are kind of going to line up for you as far as your earning potential and ability to take care of your family. And there's yeah, it was a, it was
Another uphill
special.
battle.
It was another uphill battle. I was pushing the rock uphill in the snow both ways, right? But people don't. I don't think, and I'm not just saying this to be, whiny or anything. I don't think people. You talk about resources and you talk about outlets. People don't care what happens to men after they get divorced, especially in a situation where um, there's plenty of fault to go around,
Mhm.
right? They
Mhm.
don't care. It's always, you always hear about the talk shows and the social media and the this and the that and the third
Mhm.
about how women carry on after divorce, and that's
Mhm.
fine. No one's trying to take their space, but I think there needs to be a more defined, constructive space around what happens to men post divorce, both emotionally, both psychologically, financially. Um,
Absolutely.
and quite frankly, I'll say it, and what happens to them in the um, family court system.
Yeah.
It is what it is. People can howl from the rooftops if they want, but it's extremely unfair.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of hardship placed on men because of the way the system is set up. Now,
Mhm.
I will say this: um, it was ugly at the end. I cannot and will not speak ill of my ex-wife or the mother of my child.
Mhm.
She's never denied me seeing my son. Been very just we've had a cordial relationship in terms of being in the business of raising our son and
Mhm.
understanding what that looks like. So, yeah, I do think there's some things that are tipped in the that are not completely fair with what's going
Mhm.
on, but I'm not going to speak ill of her in that light. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been complicated. It's been a lot. It's been complicated. It has not been easy. But again, that's where the Wolfpack comes into play.
Mhm.
Those dudes. Hey man, scuffling today, brother. What you got, man? Hit me. And he goes and my one buddy would go on mute and just let me spill what I got. And that's what you do though.
Yeah.
And then within those board of directors, you call the beauty of it is, yeah, they're your friends, but typically speaking, a good group of friends has a great deal of diversity within it,
Mhm.
right? In terms of what this guy's good at and what this guy's good at, and what in his perspective is always different. It's smart, but it's always different than yours. But you respect, and that's why you're buddies, because you're kind of opposites, and your cousin thinks this way or what have you,
Mhm.
right? And that's why that board of directors and the composition of said board is critically important, because you need people that are different, good in different spaces than you are, so that when when you call this guy, you call that guy, they got something good for you. It's something that not that you want to hear, something that you
Mhm.
need to hear.
Yeah. Challenge you.
There's a couple of dog, get off your ass, man. I
Yeah.
hear you and I love you, but I'm not gonna let you go down like this.
Yeah.
Or I hear you, brother. Like you'll be all right. Get through it. This, that, and the other. Or whatever that message is. And this it's what's so important about it is it's coming from a place of love. These cats got you. No one in that group is gonna do anything or say anything to hurt you. And it hadn't been for it was there was some praying going on, there was some soul searching going on. Um I like to I'm a cyclist, like to ride my bike. There's a lot of deep thought when you're on mile 25 and you're going 30, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. Cuz, what do you got for me, man? What do you need? What do you got? Give me the goods. You know?
Uh, so in saying all that today, and I think that's huge. I think one of the things, obviously, is knowing your story, and then also, the tools that you're using to help support you in that. I think that's big. And the wolf pack that you're talking about, and the support groups and board of directors, I think that's so important for people to take away. Um, Based on our time today, my last question for you
Mhm.
is, you know, what do you want us to take away from this talk today? What do you want the listener to know about yourself, or about, you know, anything you want to leave us with?
Wow, that's a big question, but I think it's a great question. This isn't about me. To your point, I think the biggest thing is providing a forum by which men can express who they are, where they are personally, not get judged for it, not be thought of as being soft, not be thought of as being weak, but understanding. I do think there's being a man. Yeah, being a man does mean being tough. It does mean being stoic at times. It does mean being You know, sometimes some of the things that in our society now have been deemed as toxic. I think
Mhm.
masculinity, being a man, is okay. It's
Yeah,
okay to be a man. It's okay to be tough. So
absolutely.
it's okay to be a little rough around the edges. That's okay.
Yeah.
So we can stop that nonsense, but also at times too, I think redefining, not redefining, but uh, understanding that it is okay to reach out and be like, hey man, I need some help. Hey man, you got to help me get through this. I can't do this by myself. And again, I'm a man of faith, looking up above, getting on your knees, being honest with God, being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror, uh, and challenging yourself, but also having that wolf pack, man, having that board of directors that's going to say, hey, I hear what you're saying. I don't agree with you, brother. Let's get through this. How are we going to work through this? Or I hear what you're saying. I'm with you. What do you need from me? And just having that group of people, whoever they may be, that have got you no matter what, and being willing and able and to reach out and not feeling embarrassed and not feeling less of a man because you need some help.
That's huge. And I selfishly, or however we want to put it, this in many ways is my therapy and having these great conversations. And I love you, brother. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here today, and for sharing your story. I hope so many people continue to follow you and get to know you, and spend time understanding your story. I think it's great to have shared that with us today. This is episode 11 of the Raising Men podcast. Again, another incredible guest, Bobby Scales. Bobby, thank you so much today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, David. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your platform and everything you're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much again. I love you.
Love you too, brother.
All right, you have a great day. I appreciate your
You,
time.
you do the same. All right.
Take care, man.